Welcome to the podcast of all podcasts, week number 24. We have a great lineup for you today. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend if you enjoy it. Thank you.
Wanna tell you about the girl I love. She looks so fine. She's the only one that I've been dreaming of. Maybe someday she will be all mine. I wanna tell her that I love her so. I thrill with her every touch. I need to tell her she's the only one I really love. I got a warm, warm ball all day. Got a woman, she won't be true now. I got a woman, stay drunk all the time. I said I got a little woman and she won't be true. On Sunday morning when we go down to church, see the men folks standing in line. Don't say they come to pray to the Lord. I'm with my little girl, looks so fine. In the evening when the sun is sinking low, everybody's with the one day love. I walk the town, keep searching all around, looking for my street corner girl. I got a warm, warm ball all day. I got a warm, she won't be true, no, no. I got a warm, stay drunk all the time. The time. My little lover does a midnight shift. She follows around all the time. I guess it's just one thing left for me to do. Gonna pack my bags and move on my way. Cause I got a worried mind, sharing what I thought was mine. Gonna leave her with the guitars play. I got a woman, she won't be true, no, no. I got a woman, ball all day, yeah, yeah. Now, now. I got a woman, stay drunk all the time. I got a little woman and she won't be true. I said she won't be true, no. Yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, no.
Next up, we visit the Joe Rogan experience while he visits with Whitney Cummings.
Because one thing you realize when you do have children is that every kid is different.
Yeah.
You know, my two youngest...
But every pregnancy is probably different.
Sure.
Because the first one, the mom is probably like, I've never done this before. The second one, they're like, I got this.
Yeah.
You know, by the third one, they don't even give a shit.
Point.
They hardly... Yeah. You and the MCT.
Shoot it
They
out.
just drink some MCT and knock it out.
Lube up the box and push it out. Just give it a slap. Send it on its way.
Dad of the year, Joe Rogan.
Hashtag slap the pussy.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah. I think that there's most certainly got to be some way that nature prepares the human for the circumstances it's going to face as a child.
Totally.
Michael Irvin was the first one to explain this to me. You know, the football player. He and I were on.
I try to stay away from football players.
He's a super nice guy.
I'm joking.
But he and I were on a flight once, just randomly to Australia. It's one of those crazy 14-hour flights, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked for a long time about this. Because he's a big UFC fan, we just started talking about people that grow up in bad neighborhoods and children that grow up in abusive households, that you develop this penchant for violence, like very early on, like an addiction to violence. And then also he was saying that their trigger is so much, their wick, their fuse is so much shorter
Impulse
than the
control.
average person.
Yeah.
It's just like you have to
0
be
to
prepared
60.
easily. Like, right away, you got to be prepared to go crazy. Whereas someone who grows up in a really happy, healthy environment where mom's on Xanax, everybody's fine. You know, and then you can't get going.
Yeah.
You know, so I wonder what's better. Is it better to be hypersensitive and hyper fueled and always ready to sprint and then figure out how to calm yourself? Or is it better to be just some dough ball with no instincts at all that has to toughen up?
I mean, I think that the answer is probably somewhere in between, and the idea is to be able to react to the circumstances you're in an appropriate way. So if you're in a dangerous situation, to be able to go 0 to 60 and defend yourself. But if you're not in a dangerous situation, to know that and to stop shadowboxing in a safe situation. So for me, I found myself, I grew up in a dangerous situation. I, was always at war. The war was over, and I continued to fight a war that wasn't happening.
You're like one of those guys that was in World War II and they find him on some island outside of Japan and he doesn't know the war's over.
Just covered in armor, I
read about this guy that was on an island. He was on an island. He didn't know the war was over. He was a Japanese guy.
Wow.
He didn't know the war was over for 30 years.
Yeah.
He was literally Tom Hanksing it on this island.
Wow.
Maybe
that's
20 years.
Unbelievable.
30 or 20. I think it was 30.
That's how a lot of people that grow up in dysfunctional homes sort of live. And I'm done taking it out on employees, employers, boyfriends, friends. It's not fair to them. One of the first things I heard in the 12-step program I'm in is this guy said, he was leading the meeting. He was like, the war is over. You lost. Which is just so great. It's like time to put the weapons down and start living. It's really just being appropriate. So if you and I, are in a relationship and you're like, hey, I got to step out and go do my podcast, and I start feeling abandoned and scared, that has nothing to do with you. That
gets weird. That gets weird.
It's
I've
not
had
fair
friends
to you.
like that before.
Yeah, or relationships or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to react to the present moment instead of what happened to me 20 years ago. I don't want to be a puppet of my parents' failures.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out a way. So there are situations where you might have to go 0 to 60 and fight for yourself, but knowing when those situations are actually happening and when they're not.
Yeah, I feel like it's better to be able to go 0 to 60 really quick.
Yeah.
And just manage it.
And I know I can do that. But in a conference room with 3 executives is not the time.
Right.
Well,
in my mind, it's never the time to be in a conference room with 3 executives.
That's true.
When I'm there, I'm like, okay, let's get out of here. Let's go. This is all fake talk.
But there's something. What is that? Is it because you're not getting adrenaline?
I'm scared to ever be them. I'm scared to ever be locked into some cubicle existence.
But on a conscious level, you never will be.
I know on a conscious level I'll never be there, but I know
so
they are.
So is it an irrational fear?
I'm around people that are dying of syphilis. They're right there.
Yeah.
They're rotting away. They've got some Ebola or something. They've got some.
So what? No, that's just called in our field. That's just called a law school degree.
Well, it's any. There was a guy that used to live next door to me, and I used to call him Bling Bling because all Bling Bling would do is talk about stuff. That's all he could ever talk about.
Nothing.
Like all this guy would do is talk about objects and new cars and new things. And
that's threatening to you
watch.
In some way.
No, it's just he was retarded.
It's just boring.
It's boring.
So it's a lack of adrenaline.
Well, I knew that he was trapped, and this guy was working. I think he was an attorney. I forget what he did, but all he was doing was working towards objects, getting new objects. He had a nice house,
stuff.
He had a nice car, but he's always wanted to talk about cars and objects.
Sounds like
and
he's
stuff.
in a lot of pain.
Well, he left his wife, and then shit got real crazy.
Yeah, he was trying to get internal needs met with external things. He was also probably trying to bond with you, and he thought that was how.
Maybe. That probably makes sense.
He was probably just like, cars?
He had a yellow
like
Viper.
Like me. Oh, that is depressing. Is he Persian?
No, I don't think so.
Who is this
I
man?
think he was Jewish.
Is he single? He sounds awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's got a gut, but whatever. You can work that
perfect.
off. He's a fixer-upper.
Yeah, I'll give him this Zevia.
Get him on some Fen-Phen. I have some left over from the 90s.
Just going to give him some of that MCT oil and he'll shit his belly out.
Do you remember Fen-Phen? Were you around during the Fen-Phen days?
What's Fen-Phen?
Fen-Phen was some crazy shit that they were giving girls in the 1990s. There was this one girl that I knew, and she was a very cute girl. She had a beautiful face, but she had a food problem, whatever the area is. And she didn't weigh a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't giant, but she was probably 5'2", 150 pounds.
I'm not a mathlete, but I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, she was thick.
Yeah.
But not in the right way.
I got it.
Not in the right way.
Disproportionate.
She ate too much.
Got it.
She had a thick, wide belt. Anyway.
Got it.
I didn't see her for a long time. And then I saw her, and she weighed 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally. She lost 50 pounds.
Wow, okay.
She was normal sized.
Yeah.
I mean, not normal sized. She was
in America,
thin.
that's not normal. But yeah.
She was thin and attractive. I was like, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, my doctor got me on Fen-Phen. And I was like, oh, okay.
Phenylethyl?
I do not remember what the actual name of
Because phenylethylamine is a adrenaline chemical. Is it like like an Adderall?
It was a speed. It's totally illegal now.
Yeah.
And people died. A lot of people died. Here it is.
Ooh. Oh, F-E-N, not P-H-E-N.
Fenfluramine,
I remember when like diet pills, like Dexatrim came out, which I definitely took when I was like 12. But what is that? Just like caffeine or something?
No, this is way harder than caffeine. Go to lasting damage from Fen-Phen. By the way, this is...
Like
there's a lot of people that are on Adderall now.
Yes.
And I'm not telling anybody to not be on Adderall, but I want you to listen to me.
Yeah.
Everybody who's on Adderall, everybody whose doctor told you need to be on Adderall.
Yep.
You are on amphetamines.
Yes.
You are on speed.
Do not get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted. And, if you're taking it, especially if you're taking it every day or 3 or 4 times a week.
Then you're just going to develop a tolerance to it, and then that just
speed.
becomes an addiction.
You're on speed, folks. And you might be okay with speed. Look, you're talking to a guy who just squirted a bunch of MCT oil and some coffee. And
That's naturally occurring. Coffee, look, it's like, I have addiction in my DNA. If you don't, I would just explore that. And also, I'm trying to look at not the things I can add, but the things I can subtract. So
That's a good move.
Instead of taking Adderall, why don't I just stop eating sugar and see what happens?
Maybe there's some beneficial aspects of Adderall to some people. I'm willing to go there, but you got to understand. I know so many moms that are on fucking Adderall.
It's shocking.
There's so many of them, and they're around you, and they're all like peppy.
Well, it's so fascinating to me because the people I know who take the
they're like can't stop moving.
No, but everyone I know is complaining about anxiety, which I'm sort of fascinated by because I think that's kind of like, survival of the fittest. We are the fittest, and the most anxious won because the most anxious people in tribes were the ones that survived because they knew lions were,
I had to explain that to my daughter because my daughter was worried about some things, and she was asking me some questions, and she was worried about stuff, and I said, do you know why you're worried about these things? I go, it's a good thing. It's because you're smart, and you're aware of danger, and you're aware of the variables.
Yeah.
I go, you're going to be fine.
Yep.
I go, but I'm like that too.
Yeah.
But I've just figured out how to manage it.
Yep.
So I had to kind of explain it to her.
Yep.
I'm like, you're just a smart little girl.
Yep.
And you're aware, like, hey, there's a lot of fucking idiots out here.
Yeah.
And some of them are on there. Like, she freaks out when she sees people texting and driving.
By the
She's
way,
like, Dad,
that's a normal...
He's not looking at his car.
It kills more people than drunk driving now.
Oh, yeah.
She's right.
She's right.
To be...
Yeah.
It's just being anxious about that instead of something you can't control.
Well, then the little brain starts going. She's 8. It's because how do you stop people from doing that? Like, what if they do that? And what if they hit our car? What if they hit somebody else's car? And what happens then?
Her and I are the same person.
Yeah. Well.
yeah. And and that makes adrenaline, which makes dopamine, and it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our brains evolved to make anxiety feel good on some level, and it makes us feel safe.
So a lot of these crazy women that are the moms that she goes to school with, or her kids go to school with, or her friends rather, their moms, they're on fucking Xanax too. So they're on Xanax and they're on amphetamines.
So delete both, and you're at the same place.
But they want to stay. This is the way to do it. This is the way to stay happy. You have to be on Xanax because Xanax keeps you from being scared, and then Adderall keeps you peppy.
My thing is,
I get everything organized. I'm so organized.
If you can afford time-wise and financially, to go to the appointment to get Xanax and Adderall, you have no actual problems.
No, see, the thing is, they all want to go to doctors. They go to doctors constantly.
It's a false sense of...
Because you get this idea in your head that you're going to find this guy and he's got a good job and you're going to live in a nice community and you're going to have children and then you're going to be happy.
Sounds
but then
like my nightmare.
You realize, like, oh, well, you're just breeding.
Yeah.
And then, you have to find fulfillment in your actual existence, your day-to-day, here and now, the moment, like this, the moment.
Yep.
Like right now.
Yep.
You have to find fulfillment in that. And it's not going to be in, like, Bling Bling's idea where you get, like, I got a boat now. Look at my boat. Now I've got a fucking this and I've got, look at my new watch.
Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work, and you keep trying to fill that hole up, and it never gets filled.
No.
So these women start going to doctor. I've just got anxiety, and the doctor's like, "Here, take this."
Anxiety is like opposable thumbs. It's been very effective and useful in our history. It's like this is the first time in our history that anxiety is not particularly useful because we have doors and locks and but yeah, there's an interesting I hear entitlement when I hear about that. And look, I've definitely been like, I'm doing a show and I have to write a script and I'm going to take I've definitely cheated and cut corners. I'm not.
How's that cheating and cut corners?
I just mean when I'm like, I have to finish a script in 4 hours. I'm going to take a half an Adderall. I've definitely done it, but I know I have addiction in my DNA, and I know that could get real ugly real fast.
I've never done Adderall. What is it
really?
Like? Yeah.
Here's my experience. I'm sure it's different with everybody. My experience with Adderall is
Next up, we go to Pirate Eye Duncan Trussell while he talks with Greg Fitzsimmons.
Body of a living God. That's what's trippy about Christianity. That's what's fucking trippy. That'll melt your brain.
Yeah.
Christians think they're cells. The church is the body of Christ. They don't mean that metaphorically. They mean literally.
Right.
Like the church is a neural network, a lattice of the mind of God.
Right, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, the Holy Spirit doesn't get a lot of ink. People don't talk about the Holy Spirit. We all know Jesus really well. We got a lot of stuff about God. And then the Holy Spirit is this thing I grew up with. And it was always like he was sort of like the mist that was floating out of the bogs. And he was the guy, that if you were a really good Christian, then you would experience this spirit. But he wasn't brick and mortar the way Jesus was.
Right. Yeah, the mist out of the bogs. That's beautiful, man. That's amazing. Yeah, that is the fundamental relationship, right? It's with the Holy Spirit, and the experience of that is that's the one thing you'd never want to taken away from you.
Right.
Like in life, the one thing you would never want taken away from you is that experience, because that's all you have, really, and then everything else is just, who cares? It's shallow, dead matter.
Yeah.
So do you still go to church?
My daughter, because they both went through 8th grade, they went to Spanish, a dual immersion program. So half the kids were from Spanish speaking homes. So Catholicism was really big, and there was a lot of crosses, and there was a lot of going to kids, first communions and confirmation parties and all these ceremonies. And so my daughter sometimes likes me to take her to church. So we'll go to St. Monica's, and she's always been fascinated with the mythology of it. And my father-in-law had a religious conversion in his 60s. And so he's very into teaching her all this stuff. Like, so we went to Cathedral St. John the Divine about 2 or 3 years ago, and we were looking at, it was what do you call it on the wall? Like a mural on the wall of the Ascension. And, and he was explaining to her about the Ascension and about, concepts that I wasn't even clear on. She was really curious about. And she just got really quiet, and her eyes kind of like narrowed, and she really listened. And she's always asking me questions about God, just out of the blue. We'll just be sitting there quietly, and then she'll be like, so if you die and you don't go to heaven and you don't go to hell, what is purgatory, like a nice place or a bad place? And I'm like, it's like the waiting room at the doctor's office. Like, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But you're going to get some help soon, so it's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
She confuses me.
Do you believe in purgatory? You still believe this. You believe it. It's okay. You believe in, right?
I guess it's almost like they talked about in Catch-22. Is that Joseph Heller?
Yes.
He's talking about like when the pilots were crashing, they all had crosses on, and they all talked about God. And then ultimately, when the plane was going down, they all called for their mother. They all cried out for their mother. And so I don't know, in my final breath, will I be thinking about my mother or about God?
Well, I mean, it feels like, is that Joseph Heller's nod to the Virgin Mary? Is that the idea? I mean, that's like Mother Mary. This is one thing I think people misunderstand about, and I think it's very beautiful with Catholicism, which is that the idea of, what's it called? The Immaculate Conception. So Mary has received the Spirit of God into her. And so Mary is the first contact, so to speak. And so the reason I've read that in Catholicism Mary is held up is because Mary is essentially the first Christian. Mary has made the decision to allow this event to happen to her. She wasn't raped. It wasn't forced upon her. She took it in. She sort of inhaled it into her. And so that makes her the original, receiver of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so that's why she's the most special, because it's the contact point. She's the node, so to speak, that the Spirit of Christ flowed out of into this dimension. And so she's the fountainhead.
She's what is it called? Specimen 1 in a virus?
Yes.
Is it Specimen 1?
Specimen 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also, for me, it was, again, going back to the sexual shame, it was that, all you women that have had kids, you're dirty. Mary didn't have sex, and she still had a kid.
Right.
She's better than you. She's
Right.
not soiled.
Soiled.
Yeah.
This is the sad part about it. With Christianity, the place where I think where organized religion and any kind of fundamentalism that makes you feel bad about sex, it's like, God, I read the New Testament and I look in there to find, where's the shame here? Where's the anti-sex stuff? You find God, you find one of the sweetest and most probably repeated stories in the New Testament is the adulterer who is about to be stoned to death. And Jesus stops it and says, you have not sinned, throw the first stone.
Right.
And it's very enigmatic because he kneels down, he draws something in the sand. It says that in every single gospel. And it's like, what the fuck did he draw? It doesn't say what he drew.
Oh, is that right?
It's really trippy. What is that? Why did he draw in the sand? What does it mean? What does that mean? What is that? I mean, there's a reason they included that.
Right.
Why did he doodle? He doodled something, or he drew something, or what was that? I don't know. I love it, though. It's mysterious.
It's like the final whisper in Lost in Translation into Bill Murray's ear.
Yes, it is. What did you say? What is it? What did he say?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is the Old Testament. I always say that to people, there's two religions. There's Old Testament Christianity and there's New Testament Christianity, and they couldn't be more different.
Right.
And that Old Testament stuff is really, I guess, the stuff that fucked with me.
Yes.
And then the New Testament is John Lennon.
That's right. And really the New Testament is the evolution of, if there's different ways to look at it. You've heard of process theology? You ever heard of that?
No.
Before? Process theology is the idea that kind of God is growing just like anything else. God is like unfolding into the universe, and we're in the very sort of crest of that unfoldment. And so when you look at the Old Testament, you're seeing an evolving God. And then the New Testament is this growth into a kind of compassionate, surrendered, turn the other cheek. It's the most revolutionary religion. And if you follow it, you're fucked kind of, because you have to give up your connection to your body. That's gone. That's gone.
Yeah.
Give it up. You're going to die. And you're going to get shot. You're going to get burnt. Dude, you want to see something crazy? Look at this. Let me show you something. somebody just gave me this, man. I was at the stand and somebody just gave me that. It's really weird. Like that this is a strange story, man. So this is, Greg's looking at this piece of rock that's been framed. But, so I was at the stand and they came out and gave me this and they're like, you know, it's been sitting in our office for a month. Someone brought this here for you. And I opened it and I looked at it. I'm like, what the fuck is it? It's like a framed rock. It looks really cool though. It's like a framed rock. And then, so I went and did my set and I went and picked that up and I'm about to leave. And this guy walks out of the showroom and he's like, I gave that to you. I gave that to you. I'm like, what? He's like, I gave that to you. I came like a month ago to give that to you. And like, it's weird that you're holding it right now. And I'm like, wait, what? You just happened to show up on the night that this thing was given to me?
Really?
Like, yeah. It's a very weird.
Oh, you mean the people from the club gave it to you?
Yeah. And he happened to be there on that night.
Really?
And he just randomly was in town and we crossed paths while I was holding this thing that he gave me. But anyway, what this is, he went to Israel. And this is a stone from the enclosure that they put Christians in before they fed them to lions.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he said that like this stone, you know, all the prayers it must have like soaked up.
Oh yeah.
And I think with Christianity, the thing that people don't fully grasp is that many Christians have died smiling, have died forgiving the people in the act of tearing their fucking eyeballs out, have like died like loving the people, killing them.
Yeah.
And like with an authentic peace inside of them that I don't think people realize that, because it's like, think of where your mind has to get to be in the moment of being murdered by a person, to be looking at them and being in love with them and like wanting them to be forgiven. Fuck.
As opposed to a martyr nowadays, a terrorist martyr is somebody who is giving their flesh, but they're harming people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's a corruption.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's so beautiful about Christianity, is it really gives the middle finger to the importance of this particular incarnation.
Next up, we go to the Whiskey Ginger podcast, while Andrew Santino talks with Neal Brennan.
Yeah, but that's not even. They eventually did that. They were like, well, then we have to trick them.
Right.
So all of the ones who, even the woke ones, were fucking literally had a blanket
the
up their
most liberal
sleeve.
sweethearts got killed the
They
fastest.
were all like, so we're very afraid. It was up until like a couple hundred years ago, which evolutionarily is a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Anyone who didn't look like us was probably going to kill us.
Yeah, you killed them.
Was probably going to kill us.
Yeah.
So we've still got so much like vestigial, like, that it's like, we just have to overcome. I mean, we have so many, even most gender stuff is just it's just vestigial.
Well, yeah. I mean, all this gender shit is because the reason that people are getting so upset about the gender lines being blurred is because people, everything, it's like saying fucking your God is not real. This whole like people getting mad over gender neutral bathrooms or whatever. It's the idea that like everything I'm always used to, you're telling me I'm incorrect. Mm-hmm. Well, I've always bought into that.
Right.
Sky is blue. It's not. It's almost like it's the core of what people get the most mad about is things that are normal to them. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's almost like, that's normal. What do you mean? That's completely normal. There's nothing abnormal about. What I find so funny is like when somebody tries to, when they'll have gender neutral bathrooms, but then they'll also have a male bathroom and a woman bathroom. And you're like, just make them all fucking bathrooms.
Right.
Save yourself some trouble. I don't understand that.
Well, I think that's for if you've got multiple stalls.
I guess. I think just say bathroom. Just put up
right, but you
signs.
but women don't want to pee and like they don't want to be in a bathroom with a man. No, they don't.
I know, but
because men are creeps.
See,
and they're pulling their panties down.
I agree in that argument. Then it's just good. Then we should have dude and chick bathrooms, and whichever one you want to use, go fucking use it.
Right, but I'm talking about multiple stall bathrooms.
You're saying yeah at the same time.
Yeah, like if there's 5 stalls, men and women don't want to be.
So
in the
why
room
can't
with
it just be men and women? Why can't the bathroom says men and then one says woman and that's it?
Because then you're into the thing of like identifying, and I don't want. My thing is, look,
I think it's more about the discomfort of if a woman comes out of a male's bathroom because she identifies as a dude, and somebody does the thing where they tell management of the dude. You know what I mean? Like the thing where someone's like,
I gotta say, I gotta say, transgender issues are just not very high on my list. I know that they're high on
on Twitter.
Yeah. But like,
here's another one. He doesn't care about trans people either.
It's just not high. In terms of priorities, it's not very high on my list. It's on the list, but it's like we got to take care of lots of groups before we get there.
Sure.
Which is what Chappelle's whole hour was about. It's like the anger of like, why did you guys jump the line? Like, I'm fucking standing here.
Right. Black guys, sit down for a second. Mm-hmm. Trans people need to have this moment. Yeah. I think I caught that fucking fly.
I don't think you did. Did you catch him?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
No chance. His brother's right there. No, I listen. It's true. I think it's so funny that people just want to occupy their times with what's going to make them upset the most for that little chunk because they can get on these great trains. You know, like on these. Fun
think that it feels good.
Yeah, it feels good to be a part of the thing.
Yeah, it feels good to be a part of a. And I mean, I used to do a thing where I'd say, if I can't be the hero, can I be the victim? Like, do you have any victim slots?
Because I jump right in.
Yeah, there's nothing people love. I mean, other than glory, pity, like earned pity.
Yeah,
feels aggrieved.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing better, man. Neal, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry.
The paragraphs of "I enjoyed my meal" on Yelp are that long, and the ones about like, and then the coup de grace. So here comes the man. They're fucking voluminous.
Have you ever noticed that 90% of negative reviews will say in there, the food was good.
The food was good.
But I'll tell you what.
But that's neither here nor there.
The food is the least important part of the complaint, which I find fascinating. We went to a sushi spot last night that we had never gone to before, and on there it got phenomenal fucking ratings.
Yeah.
But I always go, let me see the top worst 3 for fun.
Well, it's more fun. Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. So I see the top worst 3, and the top rated worst rating, which was a 1 star, had said right away, food here is good, comma, the people are the worst. And I was like, this guy, I can't wait to read more.
Yeah.
He enjoyed the food.
So did you click on his account and
Absolutely.
then see his whole body
I read
of
all
work?
of his stuff. Yeah.
His whole oeuvre?
He was really, he had some great stuff.
Does he like anybody?
Yes. He liked Casa Vega. Do you know what Casa Vega is? It's a
Sounds
hole
familiar.
in the wall Mexican joint on like Ventura and Sherman Oaks. But he liked it because why? The
People?
atmosphere, baby. I had so much fun. That was one of his
fun.
top
All
rated.
right.
He
Did they
loved
have a
it.
mariachi band or anything?
Yeah, and the
At Casa
food
Vega?
wasn't in there, by the way. Food had nothing. No, didn't even exist. Might have not eaten, but he loved Casa Vega. It just made me go, oh yeah, man, that's who America is.
People love complain. It's
love it.
great.
Yeah.
It's as good as.
Do you Yelp? You don't do that shit.
No, I've TripAdvisored like in foreign countries. Like I got a couple suits in Thailand, and the guy was like, "Would you mind TripAdvisoring?" I was like, "Yeah, cool."
And you did.
Yeah.
I went to a Michelin rated restaurant. And the guy asked us to TripAdvisor it, and then it got real. I was like, really? Fucking
I don't
Michelin
know.
rated?
I mean, if you paid a lot, then I wouldn't. Then you don't owe them that.
No, I did pay a lot, and then I thought, why would he need us to do that? Don't these things speak for themselves? Michelin rated is fucking really hard to get.
My guess is, how often are you going on Michelin.com?
No.
Looking for restaurants. That would be
Let's see.
there's
Car
the problem.
tires,
Yeah, I mean,
restaurants.
there's the problem that no one's going to like.
That rating system is
I'm
very
hungry. Michelin.
Why does a car tire company have so much fucking weight in the food
I knew
industry?
the answer to this, and I don't remember.
God,
It was.
I
think it's coming back to me because it was part of traveling. They would try to get people
they were
to
trying
travel.
to get people on the road more.
Yeah.
That's kind of like Jack Kerouac got like a national thanks from the government of
Did he really?
transportation. Yeah, for because getting out and getting in traveling was like a Kerouac idea. Was like Route 66.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea was like this like idyllic America. You can get in your car with your family, and on the road, this idea he put in people's heads was like, this is your ultimate path to freedom.
Yeah.
So the government felt indebted to him because it was getting people to like go to these places that nobody would go to. Route 66.
Yeah.
Route 66 was for truckers.
I never read On the Road. Is there drug? Is it drug?
No, it's like a.
But there's no drug.
Now we visit the WTF podcast with Marc Maron while he talks with Stephen Colbert.
Faith and about family. Sure. But when you say that it saved, that comedy saved you from tragedy, it was because you lost family, right?
Right. My father and two of my brothers died in a plane crash, Eastern Airlines Flight 212 on September 11th, 1974. And so it didn't save me from tragedy, but it gave me
the sadness.
It gave me surcease from sadness, at the end of the day. And I would listen to Bill Cosby Wonderfulness.
Yeah.
And Bill Cosby, Very Funny Fellow, Right.
Yeah.
Which is,
Sure.
That's the Noah one. And then Wonderfulness has got go-karts on it.
Back when we could listen to Bill Cosby.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, and then after that...
On records.
Who had the
albums.
records?
Did your parents have the records?
No, one of my brothers.
How old's your oldest brother?
Oh, he's 19 years older than I am, so he's in his 70s now.
So when something like that happens in a family of that size, I imagine that there's a lot of built-in support automatically.
Well, yes, we love each other very much, but we're kind of scattered, after...
No, but I mean like when that happened, when the tragedy happened, you were all kind of around, weren't you?
We were all together.
Yeah.
We were all together. I mean, it was a strange transition time in our family, and this is a slightly longer... there's no short answer to your question.
That's okay.
Because,
You don't have a show to do you?
No, I don't. September 10th.
Yeah.
You might say, like I say, September 10th, 1974.
Yeah.
It was me and Mom and Dad and Peter and Paul and Jay and Lulu and Tommy and Bill.
Yeah.
So there are like 9 people in the house.
Right.
Yeah. And then, but Lulu, Jay, and Tommy go off to college.
Yeah.
Because in September, Bill goes off. I think Bill go off to law school, or he moved out for sure. Peter, Paul, and Dad die, and suddenly it's just me and Mom. in the house. It's like people were around and people like
Sure.
came back because of how this terrible tragedy affected our entire family. But really, for the next, X number of years, it went from this enormous, busy, joyously kind of chaotic, it's okay if things aren't perfect kind of family.
Right.
To me and Mom.
Yeah.
And it became very quiet and the shades were all down and, Mom was always wearing black and it was a totally different daily communicants, like going to mass every day, looking for faith to get you through this bewildering level of tragedy and loss.
Grief,
completely disorienting in many ways and feels unreal and hyper real at the same time. And so was there a lot of support? Yes, we were all there for each other.
Right.
But I being the youngest and the middle two, the ones between me and the next ones up dying.
Yeah.
And the other ones were old enough that they had their lives. They had college or they were married and children. So it was that fall was a dramatic change in what my life was like. Of course, our entire family's life was like. But in terms of me, of how many family were around, it became just me and Mom.
And when you look back on it in terms of, I don't know how much introspection you do outside of, the face.
I try not to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I try to shave against just a corkboard.
See what happens. Let someone tell me if I missed something.
Right. Sure.
No, but do you see that how that moment is in terms of how it defined the rest of your life?
Sure.
Yeah.
That was my secret name. Was September 11th. Mm-hmm. That was the secret name I wouldn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And I even said that. I remember coming to the realization that my secret name was September.
What does
11th.
that mean, secret name?
Well, there's the name that you tell everyone else, and then there's the name by which you can be conjured.
Yeah.
If you're a demon.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
That is my secret name. You tell someone, don't tell me your secret name, or else they have control over you.
And then it became a global, tragedy.
Well, that was very strange after 9/11, as opposed to September 11th in my mind.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, suddenly that became a totemic day of tragedy for people all over the world, not even just the United States, but of course very specifically. And I watched it live from the Helix, 9/11, watching the towers, and when I remember seeing billboards after that would say, September 11th, never forget.
Yeah.
Which is totally understandable, and I understand that. But I remember thinking personally, going, really, never?
Yeah.
Because that means something different to me.
It does,
really,
right?
Never?
Yeah.
Never. It's not like I really want to forget, but do I have to carry that with me all the time?
Yeah.
Because, when you get struck with great tragedy, the absolute natural life-affirming and life-saving inclination is to scab over that.
Sure. With
whatever,
And time usually does it. If
time does it.
Keep reopening it.
And so does comedy.
Yeah.
Some of us comedy. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the labyrinthine ways of my own mind. I hid from him under running laughter, which is The Hound of Heaven. You know that poem?
By who?
Gerard Manley Hopkins. I'm not sure who it is, but it's The Hound of Heaven. It's basically
nice.
It's about God pursuing you with the truth and with love. And how you flee because you don't want to know that you are loved. You don't want to know.
Is that true?
It's hard to. I think it's hard to be fully known.
Yeah.
As St. Paul says, then I will be known as fully as. Then I will know as fully as I am known, because God knows you fully, and that's a hard thing to surrender to, is to be fully known.
It's terrifying to me.
Because then you have to, if you know that someone else knows you fully, say for those of you who are listening, if there is a God, and I know that for many people that makes no sense, but if there is a God and He fully knows you, that's an interesting accusation that someone else fully knows you.
Right. Because
the question is, do I fully know me? Shouldn't I? And then that's an invitation to self-examination.
Right. But that's sort of the core of faith in a way, that if you allow yourself to be fully known by God, then the rest is sort of, I can only do my best.
I suppose so. It's humility. It's an act of humility.
Well, that's a good question in terms of when coming back around, and then we can fill in the gaps, is that I felt that, when you were doing the Colbert Report, and then, you take this job, part of this job that you have now on some level is allowing a weird sliver of yourself to be fully known in a way that is accessible and authentic. Maybe not all of you, but that part has got to resonate.
Sure.
So that must have, I thought, been an amazing challenge.
Oh, a huge one, like the one that I couldn't possibly prepare for.
Right.
Because I was at an event the other night, and someone said, "Oh, do you act?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, until 4 years ago, that's all I did."
Yeah.
I'm 54 years old, and from age 22, whenever I got out of theater school, till 50, I was an actor. And the Colbert Report was a 10-year sketch.
Yeah.
It was a 10-year scene. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And I had a character want. I either achieved it, I didn't. My scene partner was the audience, or I never thought of doing it alone.
Right.
I was doing a scene with someone.
Right.
Trying to convince them and also have them love me.
Yeah.
What does anybody want? What does any character want in any play or anything? Love me.
Right.
And so that was the whole objective. It was like, please love me. And so it's strange for me now to be myself. I even said to James Baby Doll Dixon, the real king of late night, who represents me and John and Kimmel. And I said, because he said, it's you.
Yeah.
Because there was like, who is going to be? And they said, they want to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And I said, James, I said, the last thing I thought I would do next is something harder.
Yeah. Yeah. When does this get easier?
And he goes, no, it's going to be easier. I said, I don't believe you. And I was right, by the way. It's much harder. It's much harder. It's much harder. But the other thing I said was like, James, this will be the first time I haven't been an actor. Like, you don't understand. Like, that's not me on the Colbert Report. That's me acting, using the character as a confession,
right,
in a way,
yeah,
of some of my darkest impulses as a human being. But I don't even think even necessarily my dark impulses, just human dark impulses.
Sure.
Right. I want to be the most important one. I want the only person. Like, I want all the praise.
Just a malignant ego.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to have that reinforced and have the audience cheer on me embodying their appetites.
Right.
That's why they would I'd have a guest on that they agreed with, but they would cheer me when I would knock the person's ideas down.
Right.
Through this embodiment of appetites.
And now you had to be put in a position to figure out who you are, what your timing is.
Yes.
Am I funny in that way as me, Stephen?
Right. And what do I care about?
Yeah.
Because you got to talk about things every night, and you can't really fake it. You have to kind of care.
When did the battle stop being sadness?
What do you mean?
In yourself. I mean, when you come out of what you came out of, and you're using, listening to comedy, you're using faith to sort of I guess,
it's always, what do you mean? When did it stop being sadness?
Okay.
The battle's always sadness.
Yeah.
Oh, battle's always sadness,
Yeah.
It frightens me, the awful truth of how sweet life can be.
Me too.
Yeah.
And
the preciousness and the fleetingness of life. Having lost those people in my life when I was young, makes everything seem fleeting to me. So that stays with you. Oh, absolutely. There's a poem by a guy. I believe he's got an Italian name, but I think he's Swiss. Mm-hmm. And his name was Romano Guardini. And Romano Guardini is a Catholic writer, a philosopher, and maybe a clergyman. I can't remember. And he's got this great prayer about the fullness of eternity and about how in the dawn we perceive the dusk.
Yeah.
We know it's coming.
Yeah.
So I constantly do the math of how long will this beautiful moment last. So
right.
There's always that. It's suffused through all of my joy.
Yeah.
Is how long will this last?
But you're capable of experiencing joy.
Without a doubt.
That's
constantly.
Great. Oh, that's so
all
good.
the time, but it's not alone. It's not like unalloyed.
Yeah.
It's not unalloyed. It's I'm definitely got some tin in my iron, but it makes steel.
Right.
Yeah. That's nice. No, but I joy all the time. Joy with my family, joy with my friends that I do the show with.
Yeah.
For the beauty of the earth,
Yeah.
But for the little green leaf and the wind on the water, like the joy of creation, how strange it is to be anything at all. I get that feeling all the time.
That's great.
Dag Sheppard with Aubrey Plaza.
Garland obsession growing up, so I would kind of go back and forth from comedies, and then I would watch Judy Garland movies. My taste was all over the place, but I worked at a video store called Classic Video. Once I got the job there, that's when I was exposed to independent films. I remember I started to see independent films and go like, oh, this is like a whole thing.
Yeah. Is it like a Vidiots type that it had that kind of collection?
It was smaller. And the porn section was actually the largest section.
And what were those interactions with those guys like? They were so ashamed, probably,
guys and
right?
girls.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
there were women, man. It was interesting. That was like the part of the job that was like, scary because I would have to go put the, put
in the
back
room where the men
in the
are
room
and
then,
women.
But the fun thing was that I could look up in my system all the porn movies that people in my
community were renting.
It was like when people buy condoms and they buy like gum and like and they would buy like other movies and then just like throw another one in there.
Yeah, but I can't imagine anything making me more uncomfortable than being like my age as an adult male with a family, going to grab a adult film and then having a teenage female check me out.
You would love
no,
it.
No, I would be so ashamed.
You like it.
You like it so much. You want to go back in time and rent a porno from me.
Do.
That's an interesting power dynamic that you can take this person who normally has the power in society, a white male, you're a teen female, and they're doing this activity that is intrinsically embarrassing. And then the power shifts. It does a 180.
I guess the covers to those DVDs were blank, so it wasn't like they're sliding a thing that
Someone's
like was
deep
like
throating
hardcore,
it,
like like I, but I knew what it was. So it was like no, I was just as embarrassed as they were.
You didn't sense the power shift?
No, because it was creepy.
Now, I, as a young man, would pop my head in there. There was a curtain in my town video
we had
store.
a curtain. Yeah.
I mean, it's very shaming. I mean, just the fact that you've got to enter this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would.
I remember what it smelled like too. I just remember that. No, smell like.
Of course not. It's not a coin operated.
No, it was like a carpet smell. Anyway,
I would pop in there, and then I'd be in there, which was fantastic. I would like glance at all the covers. And then I'd have a panic about exiting. I'm like, oh, is someone going to be standing right there? It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
It was like a big part of my
psychological
life.
Shit
yeah,
show.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
kids don't have to do that anymore, or people.
Right.
They don't have to worry about that.
No, it's like for hymns. It's just all in the privacy of your own computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question on it, I promise. Did you think you ever observed someone coming in for a porno, saw you, it was like, fuck this.
Yes.
I'm just, okay.
Multiple times. Multiple times.
Like a family member or a friend of a
100%.
family? Yeah.
Not people that I knew, but some people would just chicken out. I could tell.
Yes.
100% I could tell.
Well, you see it as you pointed out, it's very similar to buying condoms.
Yeah.
I'll see kids crossing that area like 4 times confused, and I'm like, I'll just buy this fucking kid some rubbers or something,
Yeah.
I never minded doing that. But I got a bang out of, like, your thing about going to the prom with a fucking Swedish guy.
You like causing...
I did. Now we would call it an interrupter. Is that the new term?
I was just going to say that.
So I would like to be an interrupter.
I was an interrupter.
Yeah.
Right.
For people to be like going, I've not had this experience, and now I'm going to see something new. I think maybe that was my ultimate goal, is like,
yes,
you're going to see someone break out of their pattern and have to deal with this really bizarre situation.
Yes.
Like my ex-girlfriend and I in high school, Carrie, we'd go into a 7-Eleven and we would get in screaming matches in 7-Eleven, and then she would storm out and I'd yell at her. And like, what we were really saying is that we were like involved in an abusive relationship.
Yeah. I did that all the time.
You did?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes,
we
what
would
is that?
really gotten along.
Yeah. Why did we want to do that?
Because you just feel alive. It's like, you're like, hello, we're all going to die. What are we doing here? We're animals. We're human. Like, what is this?
Yeah, we
why
have
is everyone
clothes
acting
on?
normal about this?
Yes.
Like, why are we pretending this is normal?
There was that for me. And then there was also, too, I was very obsessed with which of all these rules do I actually have to follow? That was a big preoccupation of mine. Because when you're 12, you're like, oh, you do this, and then as you start getting older and you kind of start breaking some of these rules, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to do it this way. Maybe I'm not going to go to college. Maybe I'm not going to. I was just playing with what rules are real. And so I liked going and raising a ruckus to find out, like, was that the limit?
I mean, I still think about things like in that way. And sometimes I have to remind myself, hey, break some rules,
Pay attention a little bit.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something really gross I used to do with Kristen? We'd be on a walk, and if I had gas, I'd walk ahead of her, like 30 feet. And as I would cross someone walking, I would fart as loud as I could so that she could observe their reaction.
That's romantic. That's so sweet.
She loved it. I loved it. I'll even argue the person who heard the fart loved it because they didn't smell it. They were moving and I was moving. But it's funny when you hear a human being fart loud. Everyone gets nervous. It's a high pressure situation. You know.
I don't know. I think it's like a sweet thing that you want to make her laugh, but I'm not really into farting.
No, well, most people aren't, again, which is why it's so funny to watch someone else's reaction having heard a very loud public fart.
Nick Offerman and Chris Pratt would fart so loud and so much when we were shooting Parks and Rec, and it would make me and Amy so angry.
Really?
Yeah, because we both feel the same way where we were always like, we don't think it's funny.
Right.
But it was funny, but maybe because I didn't grow up with like guys in my class or something.
Right, and
like,
you
it just,
have
like,
sisters.
wasn't like a thing. And so, but they would just do that all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, speaking of like a Donald Glover, you were on Parks with Chris Pratt, and then he became this massive, massive, massive movie star.
I know.
How crazy is that?
I can't believe it.
Yeah. How do I say this? I wouldn't have predicted it, not because I don't think he's hyper talented. I just would have thought, oh, he's too nice to be. Like, I just felt like maybe you got to be a dick to be a mega movie star in some way.
There's like a levels, you know. Don't you feel like the ones that are really, really mega are actually like nice? Sometimes there's like another like level below that where it's like you're mega famous, but you're like a dick. If you're like Hanks or Clooney or something, you're like in another level because it's like actually that's the thing.
Yes, and then
to
you
be nice.
You can be very benevolent at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like people are drawn to that. I just think if you're an asshole, you can only get so far. If you're like an actor, you're on a show or movie or whatever, you're affecting people's lives. Like your energy all gotta be groovy, man. Like those things are spiritual experiences, at least in my opinion. It's like you gotta treat it sacred. It's like we're all doing this together.
Yes. I felt compelled to go back to the fart thing for a second.
Do we need to do
only I wanted to clarify one thing. I actually could never ever do what Chris and Nick did.
Like fart while
I could
you're working?
never fart at my work. I would be so embarrassed. I want everyone at work to think I'm cute and attractive.
Well,
but with
I mean,
strangers,
I would say like that didn't start until like, you know, season 6.
Okay.
Whatever. Like it wasn't like right away. They're like blasting us.
Okay.
But like
I just wanted to be clear that like I can do that in front of a complete stranger walking down the street that I hope I'll never see again.
I understand.
Monica and I have been friends for 5.5 years now, and I just the other day farted for the first time in front of her.
Oh, yeah.
And I only because
Nice.
I was almost certain it was going to be a cute
Odorless.
sounding one and odorless.
Yeah.
And it
He
was
says he can tell before they happen whether they're odorless or not.
I can
so
have a pretty good sense of
he
it.
has
Yeah.
a special quality.
Do you think having kids makes you like more open to like farting?
I was always obsessed with poop and farts and all that.
I understand.
Okay, sorry. I'll get off of it now. I didn't mean to do all that. I just wanted to clarify that I would not fart at work.
I
So
get
you're
it.
safe to work with me if you ever want to.
Moving on.
Okay. So you had a stroke. The girlfriend I was just talking about that we would have fights at 7-Eleven, she had a stroke too.
How old was she?
She was probably 38. And she was like kind of getting ready and she was getting more and more confused. And there was like a long period of being confused before she even put together. And I think she called someone who could recognize something was going on. But
oh God.
What a
You're giving me,
fucking anxiety.
Well, what happened to me was like a little bit more obvious that there was something wrong because I was living in Queens. I was in Astoria. I was going over to my friend's apartment to like have lunch with them or something. And I had barely gotten in the door talking about how I'd taken my younger sister to a Hillary Duff concert the night before.
That's sweet of you.
I remember talking about Hillary Duff, and in mid-sentence, I like looked down and my right side of my body was paralyzed, but I didn't realize that my brain was like telling me the signal of like, that is not your arm. It is not attached to you. If you're paralyzed, it's not like a numbing sensation.
I would imagine it to feel numb, but
it doesn't feel like
feeling.
anything. Your brain is just not computing that that's your arm.
Yeah.
So I was like, whose arm is that? And all of a sudden my arm looked very long and like alien-like to me, where I was just like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I started like hitting myself. I remember that. And then like all of a sudden I kind of like blacked out for like a second and like the sound got like weird.
Ooh.
And then when I was like conscious again, I couldn't speak because the blood clot was in my language center in my left temporal lobe. And so I had expressive aphasia, which is where I forgot language, but I could understand it. I just couldn't like respond. So then my friends thought I was doing a bit because I was always doing bits.
Sure.
And they were like,
"You're very funny."
Like, stop it. I remember putting my hands to my throat and going like, and making like a weird sound.
You're right. This is the worst thing that can happen to a comedian because everyone's assuming.
Yeah.
As we just said, we're interrupters. So like, oh, here we go. She's going to fucking interrupt this lunch party.
That was like the most terrifying part is just people didn't know something was wrong with me. And then they kept going, should we call an ambulance? And I was conscious. Like, that's the weird thing about having a stroke is, like, you know it's happening.
Sure.
So you're watching it go down.
Yeah.
Which is, like, the weird, trippy part of it.
Yeah.
So, like, I knew what was happening. But at the same time, I was like, I can't talk. I don't know why. And they were like, should we call an ambulance? And I was shaking my head, yes. And then the paramedics got there and they're asking me all these questions. And of course, I can't answer any questions. And they think I'm
like,
on
what drugs are you on? What drugs are you on?
100%. They thought I was on drugs and that I was lying. What did I take? What did I take?
And how long before you regained your ability to talk?
I was saying certain words. I would say the wrong words. They would ask me, what's the last thing you ate? I knew the answer was yogurt, but I couldn't say it. So it would take me a long time. And then like maybe half an hour later, I'd be like, yogurt.
Oh my gosh.
And by that time they were like, do you want yogurt? Why are you saying yogurt? You know? And so like at the time I was dating someone that was like 5 years older than me. And it was like relatively new relationship. And he came to the hospital to see me, and I was 20, and the doctor was asking me how old I was, and the only number I could remember to say was 16, and I kept going 16, and my boyfriend at the time was going like, are you 16? I didn't understand. Are you 16? And I was like, 16, and he was like, Aubrey, like, what is happening? Like, you're, you know, like there were funny things that happened, but yeah, it was like so fucked up.
There's nothing scarier than your brain being broken.
I know. I'm scared every day because having a stroke is like being hit by like a bus. There wasn't warning signs, you know. It wasn't like, well, I might get a stroke because of this. It happened out of nowhere.
And a stroke is just you have a clot somewhere in your body and it makes its way up your bloodstream, right? And then it ends up clogging a part of your brain.
I know. Why can't they test for that?
Well, I think people have clots all the time, but they don't migrate normally, right?
Yeah, I don't know. They cannot figure out. And like I am still on the kind of investigative journey of trying to figure out what's wrong with me because I still last week went to a new doctor who did like.
Thank you folks for listening. Tune in next week for more podcasts of all podcasts.
Wow.